Hey guys, Ed here for episode 2 of Gunpla with Ed, and today we're going to be building the high-grade 1/144 scale Transient Gundam from Gundam Build Fighters Try. Before I start the video, I'd like to say a special thanks to Image Anime for supplying this kit to me. Image Anime is my new sponsor and will be supplying a lot of the Gunpla you see in these episodes, but I'll be going into more of that at the end of the video. The Transient Gundam is the unit used by the leader of Team Celestial Sphere, Wilfred Kojima. The box art for this kit, as with most models lately, is very nice and detailed and shows off all the weapons and stuff that this kit comes with. An impressive array of hands, as well as a stand, which is kind of a rarity to see in most kits these days. Some nice Photoshop work, and as well as a price tag of 1,800 yen. Opening the box up, I was pretty happy to see a small advertisement for the new high-grade Revive line coming out. Super excited about those kits. The parts are all nicely detailed, but perhaps a tad too much. I noticed a few details on the physical parts that aren't on the line art, mainly the lines on the side of the arms, as well as a few large nubs on the clear parts that have me a little bit worried, but besides that, it looks very clean and nice and like a straightforward build. Tons of white parts. And of course a sticker sheet, but we won't be needing that. The manual is like the other Build Fighter kits, a nice large detailed spread showing off several poses and gimmicks, and the unusual section showing off what kits apparently inspired this build. There's also helpful little tips for beginners on how to improve your Gunpla with small additions and details. Here, it's covering a certain section in with a gray marker. And of course, the standard black and white and gray instructions, as well as a color page on the back. Now, let's put it together. Since the Transient Gundam isn't from anywhere else except for Build Fighters, it doesn't really have a long history or a story behind its design. Information from the wiki states that it's based on the designs of several 00 Gundam suits, but to me it just pretty much looks like Astria, as well as maybe bits of Quana and some Exia mixed in. Most of this Gundam's weapons are GN based, hence it being derived from 00 suits. It has a GN drive located on the back and can use a GN field similar to the Gundams from Gundam 00. The color of this field, however, is blue instead of green. The primary weapons of the Transient are pretty obvious. It's giant spears that are titled the GN Partisans. These spears can be used as a long-range or short-range weapons. When swung, it can fire either a series of homing beam shots or a large crescent beam. It can also shoot from the ends, where the spears open and split at the tips. The spear can also deflect physical and beam attacks, and can even split in half to be used as GN bits. It also has a pair of wrist-mounted GN Vulcans that can be turned into beam sabers for close combat. Transient at first glance doesn't have a large array of weapons. No physical shield or gun, but when you break down how much the primary weapons can do, it starts to show how versatile it is. There are even more effects that the suit can do that I haven't listed here. But if you'd like to see everything that this suit can do, you'll just have to watch the show. A few fun facts about the suit include that it closely resembles the Exia Amazing and the Exia Dark Matter in style. This could be heavily based around Wilfred stating that he wants to be the next Meijin, and trying to somewhat copy the third Meijin style of mobile suit. It also oddly is the only mobile suit in Build Fighters to have the numbers 9999 in its model number, aside from the two suits Mao used in the first series, which is a bit odd. Another one is that if you look closely, when the Transient uses its Transient Burst effect, the light particle effects look very similar to the Celestial Being symbol. This is just a fun little Easter egg referencing its origin. Some things I noticed that you should look out for while building this kit are a few really tricky seam lines, including parts of the wrists as well as some parts that go over some of the clear bits. Though, later in the video I'll show off some simple tricks to remove them. The molded clear blue parts also have some very tricky to hide nubs on them, and you should be super careful about them when you're cutting them off the runners and trimming the nubs. Unless you have a way to either 1. Paint over the clear parts with a clear paint, or 2. Have a way to sand them very smooth, they are usually going to leave some sort of whitish mark, which can be kind of an eyesore. Another thing I noticed is how the clear blue isn't correctly molded. It's supposed to be this lighter turquoise color, but it's a darker blue. I decided to roll with it and ended up making them even more dark later on, but either way, I still would have preferred the light turquoise color that they were in the show. Aside from the few altered colors and a couple of really odd seam lines and the clear parts having a couple issues, this kit is very solid, and it comes with a ton of hands, which is a big selling point for me. Hands make or break a kit for me, and this kit definitely comes with enough hands to keep me satisfied. Pretty fun to put together and really interesting design. I like it a lot more than most of the Canon 00 suits, to be honest. Despite its flaws, as I said earlier, the Transient really comes together and is a very solid kit. Has some lovely articulation, very nice details, and pretty awesome panel lines that they've added into it. Again, it does have some extra details that aren't in the line art, but I kinda like that. The extra hands definitely add a huge bonus feature to this kit, and it can do a ton of different things. It's also really nice that the spears can do what they did in the show, open up and split in half and such. And plus the fact that it comes with a stand is awesome on Bandai's part. After building this and watching the show, I really now want to get Portin Gundam to go with it, and possibly the end when it comes out. Even though I feel the end doesn't really fit in with Team Celestial Sphere that well, I might still get it just to complete the trio. Also, you notice that there's a lot of clear bits missing on this kit from the chest, the head, and the arms, and that's just because I chose not to put them in yet until I completely fully painted the kit, because it would be pretty much impossible to get them out otherwise. But anyway, that about covers the base of the kit. So let's move on to prep work, painting, priming, and all that other fun stuff. The Transient doesn't have many colors, which makes painting a bit easier since I don't have as many things to paint differently. Unlike most kits, the Transient has quite a lot of clear parts, and those need to be specially treated and fiddled with, and a couple other things need to do to them before painting. Some people like to just fix the clear bits, smooth them out with special tools and such, but since I don't have any of those tools, there's a different method that I'm going to do with those, but I'll go into that later. One thing I do like about the Transient's build is that it separates very nicely. Things come apart and can easily go back together without a lot of modding after the paintwork. The kit is now sorted into a pile that needs fixing, and a pile that doesn't. The first thing to fix on the Transient are the so-called safety nubs on the sharper parts on the head crest and the chest. These are molded on almost every high-grade kit that have V-fins or other sharp edges for safety reasons, and despite them not being taken off in some of the promo images, your kit will look much better if you take them off. An easy way to do that is just to cut them off with a hobby knife and sand them down smooth and sharp with some sandpaper, as you can see right here. The next is the age-old trick of just separating the front skirts so they can operate independently of each other. Another thing that you don't usually see as badly on newer kits, but can still usually happen on thin or cylindrical parts, is flashing. Flashing is just slight thin raised bits of plastic that happen after molding sometimes. There was a bit on the spears that come with a Transient, but those are easily removed with either light sanding, scraping them off with a hobby knife, or a combination of the two. A lot of people don't bother with smoothing this out since it's such a small detail, but I try and catch it and fix it whenever I can. A little effort goes a long way, and it's very noticeable at the end. Now, here we have the arms. The arms have seam lines that are creatively molded in as details, so we don't have to worry about those, but there is a seam line on the wrist. Now, rather than masking the joint off while painting, you can simply mod the arm. Just cut the bottom half of the gray joint off so you still have the hand socket in the forearm, and then can remove the upper joint for painting. Just make sure to glue it all in place after it's painted. If you're not that good with masking like I'm not, this simple little mod can save you a lot of hassle later on. Now you can remove the joint and easily fix the seam line on the wrist without having to worry about masking anything off. Another frustrating seam line is one on the backpack fins, where the clear part is sandwiched in between two long white parts. This can be fixed simply by clipping a section in the clear bit's hole so it can be popped in and out of the white parts. Now you can cement the parts together for easy seam removal. An example of these safety nubs are on the shoulders, where there are large bits of plastic that kind of look a bit awkward and make the shoulder look a lot less sharp than they should be. These can easily be trimmed down with a hobby knife and then sanded smooth. After applying putty and cement to the seam lines, I sand them smooth, first with a lower grit sandpaper and then a higher one to make them nice and smooth. After that, I do what I like to call test priming, where I spray a bit of primer on the parts that have needed some seam work, and I do that just to make sure it's all smooth and to make any small imperfections stand out so I can go back and fix them. This process helps by making sure everything is fixed before I fully prime each part. It makes it a lot easier than having to go back and fix them all after a full coat of primer's been laid down. Then, I just lay down a nice coat of primer on everything. The next step is pre-shading. For pre-shading, you lay down lines of a color you want your shade to be in around the edges, curves, creases, and other part areas that you want shaded. There are other ways to do shading that I use frequently, but I find that pre-shading on light colors like white and yellow and using post-shading on darker colors like black, gray, and blue gives me the desired results that I'm looking for with a more dominant shade. Transient has clear blue parts and primarily has more of a bluish purple glow to it, so I figured a light blue free shade would fit into the Transient's design very well. With pre-shading, it's alright if you fill in an area with too much of your desired shade color. You can fix that and blend it when you lay down your primary color later on. Now that all the blue pre-shade has been laid down, it's time to add in the white. With the white, I spray in the area without the blue first and slowly work my way out to the edges to ensure that the shading stays visible, lightly going over the blue and making sure that it's all even all around. Shading is a pretty delicate procedure and takes quite a bit of time, but honestly it's one of my favorite things about building models and definitely worth it in the end. White seems to be the hardest thing for me to learn how to shade properly, which is a problem since most Gundams are white. However, lately, since I switched to lacquer paints, I seem to be getting the hang of it a bit easier. This is probably due to the fact that they blend a lot easier than most other paints. Then I go and shade the other parts, the gray and the purple bits. Once everything is painted, I inspect the parts to see if there's any mistakes in the paint that need fixing and to see any small parts that need hand painting done to them. There are several small bits that need gray detailing painted on them. Usually I use acrylic paint to paint small details since they easily clean off and don't mix with the lacquer paints, but since I ran out of black acrylic paint, I used lacquers this time, which is alright, but it's just a bit more risky since if you mess up, they won't just wipe off. Next I assemble some of the smaller painted pieces, such as joints, putting the covers on the hands, and assembling some of the smaller bits. This makes the top coating, decaling, and panel washing process much easier for me since I don't have a mountain of small, tiny individual parts to work with, and instead have larger chunks and sections to work with. Also remembering to glue in the joints into the forearms so they don't come out. Normally I use gloves when I'm handling the raw painted parts, but I was in kind of a rush this night, so I decided to skip them. Now that all the regularly painted parts are completed, I had to figure out the task of what to do with clear parts. The clear parts, like I stated earlier, have nasty nub marks on them since they were molded a certain way, and since I don't have anything to sand them smooth and takes the nub marks away, I used what I had available to me. Using some clear alclad blue paint, I gave the clear parts a thick coat of clear blue, making them a bit darker in color, but making the appearance of the nub and stress marks lessened greatly. After I paint all the clear blue parts, I assemble more of the kit so I can move on to panel washing and decaling. For the backsides, I was considering using the silver stickers, or even painting the insides or the places where the blue parts went in behind them silver, but I decided not to. They looked fine without it. One thing I will note about the spears is that the small white clips that they clip into break very easily. I did snap one, but it managed to work just fine without it. But it's something to watch out for, so just be careful if you get a Transient Gundam. Another nice thing about painting the clear blue parts is that the awkwardness of seeing the joints in the spear is reduced, making it look more accurate to the anime. Next, I gave the parts a black panel wash. I use different things for different panel washes, but this time I used some acrylic black wash by Vallejo. They make amazing washes and are really nice for small or large scale kits. Very easy to clean up and very easy to use and thin with water. After the wash dries, I just add some water slide decals in to add some detail to the kit. Always remember to put decal softer on your decals so they don't silver. And next, it's time to do the final step of putting some flat coat on the kit. I use Alclad Clear Coat because I find that it adds a really nice, almost vinyl finish to the kits. And yes, I do spray it on top of all the clear bits because I like the frosted look that it gives them. Now that all the parts of the Gundam have been top coated, decaled, washed, painted, and all that other fun stuff, it's time for the final step, assembly. Usually, I'll let the top-coated parts sit for about an hour, and even when they are fully dry, I still like to use gloves so I don't get any fingerprints or paint left over on my hands onto the final product. And luckily, I finished this kit only about 20 minutes before I had to catch a ride at 5 in the morning to New York City. Joining the Gunpla community, I never expected it to take me as far as it has. It's taken me to places I never thought I'd ever go for anything more than just a casual trip. One of those places being New York City. I love it that I get to travel there as much as I do, being it's about 6 hours away from where I live. Honestly, I don't think I would have ever gone to New York City if it wasn't for the fact that the GBWCs, and whenever I go there, I get the luxury of staying with one of my best friends, Jeremy. And whenever we are in the city, we always like to go to our favorite anime shop, Image Anime. Image Anime is a great anime store located at 242 West 30th Street between 7th and 8th Avenue, and is a small slice of heaven for any anime fan. Filled to the brim with DVD, bags, wall scrolls, and mostly figures, there's anything any anime fan could possibly want there. Whenever I'm there, I spend a large amount of my time just drooling at all of the things they have in their lovely glass display cases and wondering how much I can get with the money that I brought there. And most importantly for me, and many of you watching this video, they have a very large model section located in the back of the store. You can always rely on Image to have the newest Gunpla as soon as it's out, so I like to go there and get the newest kits. I'd also like to thank Image Anime for being my new sponsor. My good friend Darius, also known as D Amazing, hooked me up with this amazing sponsorship and supplies me with the kits for these Gunpla with Ed episodes. I love Image Anime, and it's just really awesome that a company that I love so much and is pretty close by to me is sponsoring me. Image is usually where me and all my modeling buddies meet up when we're in the city and just hang out, buy kits, swap stuff, and just have a grand old time with each other. And one of the coolest things about all this is that all the kits that I do with this sponsorship will temporarily be on display at Image in their model display case after I complete them. How cool is that? This is a huge honor to me that I'm able to put my work on display publicly for a store and just have my work stand among those who put so much effort and hard work into this hobby. So, if you enjoyed this episode on the Transient Gundam, be sure to stop in Image Anime so you can see it in person. I've always wanted to have my work on display in a shop, and this trip to New York City was very special for me, for the fact that it was the first time I've ever put my work in a display case in a store. I'm very honored that my work can be placed in a public area like that. Even if Image wasn't sponsoring me, I would still be throwing all the love in my heart at them. Everyone at their store is amazing, super friendly, and just so much fun to sit, chill, and talk with about Gunpla and anything else. Thanks again to Image for this amazing sponsorship, and thank you very much to my good friend Darius for helping me make one of my dreams a reality. If you like this episode of Gunpla with Ed, be sure to drop by Image Anime to see this kid in person, and to show them some love, check out their website. If you don't live around here and you still want to check out the Transient Gundam up close, be sure to hop by my blog and check out the full HD gallery of photos on the Transient. Thanks so much for watching, and stay tuned for the next episode. Till next time.